So I'll start with, hi, welcome Rawle to my YouTube channel, and thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me about your role and sharing your journey of how you've got there. So do you want to just introduce yourself and say a little bit about you, Rawle?
Yeah, thank my pleasure. My name is Rawle Ragoobar. I'm a mental health nurse. Been a mental health nurse for about almost 20 years, and I'm currently of a staff support team in a mental health trust in London.
Great, that sounds fantastic. And how did you become a nurse? And a little bit about your career progression to this
Okay.
role.
Well, just going back a bit, I never thought be a nurse. I'm originally from Trinidad. Come from a mixed background, Indo-Caribbean, Afro-Caribbean parents. But my aunt and uncle were here since the 60s, 70s as nurses, and they lived here for a long time. So I came over around the age of 25. And my brother was a nurse at the time, just finishing his training, and he spoke to me. I laughed at him, as like, yeah, right, me a nurse. Um, but then the more conversations I had with them and my family, the more curious I became. And I started working in an elderly nursing home, then a learning disability home, and I got more and more interested. I was getting some joy from doing this type of work. And I put my name forward, signed up, got onto a course, trained at South Bank University here at London. Um, yeah, that's how I started. That's how my journey began.
Great. I could definitely identify with the didn't think I was going to be a nurse and then did the training, and absolutely I think was one of the best decisions that I've made. So when you qualified from Southbank, did you actually, which course did you do at Southbank? Because when I qualified I did the diploma, and I don't know if you did similar.
Yeah, it was 2003 and they were still doing the diploma. So I
Yeah.
did the diploma and trained from 2000 and qualified in 2003. I started working in early intervention inpatient services as a newly qualified D grade nurse back in those days.
Yeah, I remember the Whitley system. Cool. So how did you go from being a newly qualified nurse in the early intervention service to your current role? And I guess the other thing, just say a little bit about what an early intervention service is in mental health.
Okay. So I worked for quite a while, over 13 years, in early intervention and psychosis. So
Hmm.
it was the first episode inpatient service here in London, and at the time, and still is, um, the only inpatient early intervention service in the country, in the UK. So it was a specialist service, specialized in treating young adults, 1835, who are experienced their first episode of psychosis and needed inpatient treatment. And then we'll look after them and discharge the early intervention and psychosis community mental health team within their own catchment area. So that's the early intervention service.
Hmm.
And in terms of where I started and where I am now, again, I never thought I'll be doing this role now as a nurse, but just try to put things in chronological order. So I started in early intervention service 2003. I qualified, I think I was 29 when I qualified.
Hmm.
And I worked there as a new nurse to our E grade and then a charge nurse. And then moved up the bands a bit in a practice development nurse, which is similar to a deputy manager type role. And then while doing that, I got involved in various type of projects. So or started expanded my role. So one of the things I did was I trained to be what we call a PSTS tutor, promoting safe and therapeutic services tutor. And I did that as an in-house tutor for about 4 or 5 years. And this is more about management and violence and aggression and prevention of violence and aggression. And
Hmm.
this involved theory as well as practical. So just expanding my knowledge and skills and another tool to the toolbox. So while I was on board, I was approached to go and manage a psychiatric intensive care unit. It was my first proper ward managerial role. It was a male psychiatric intensive care unit, and I was approached. I didn't go looking for it, but somebody said something good about me, and was approached, and I went on a secondment, managing a male psychiatric intensive care unit. Then I ended that secondment, and that secondment I chose to end. I felt I had a taste. We had an agreement, and I came back to my previous role, which was a practice development nurse. But then while I was doing the practice development nurse, I did some additional training, quality improvement, but I also did a RCN, Royal College of Nursing Leadership program. And part of that program, it was a 12-month program, and part of the program was to identify and create and do it like a service improvement or service development project. And from that, and I think it's that project that's kind of contributed to the role I am in today. It was doing a bit of reflective practice on the ward. It was just a bit ad hoc initially. I was thinking about what project can I do, because one of the things everyone's asked is how much is this going to cost? How much money it's going to save us? What difference it's going to make? So it was hard to get funding to do anything. So I had to think creatively. But some of my experiences working in an acute ward, it can be quite challenging, quite stressful. There's a lot goes on. It's very fast paced, very changeable, unpredictable at times. And I felt sometimes we didn't have space to come together and offload. Everybody's busy moving from job to job, task to task. So I started doing this end of shift, 15-minute reflecting space just about that shift. How do you feel after today's shift? Your thoughts, what did it leave you with? Just a space for the team to come together, empty the bucket, connect, try and leave as much as possible back at work. And yeah, also celebrate achievements, what went well this shift. And I started doing that and I call it shift reflection. And I use a mapping model, like a spider diagram. So there's a visual thing. Or today's shift was stressful. Tell me a little bit more what's stressful about it. There was a little bit of problem solving in it, but it's more about the emotional impact of the shift, and just a quick, reflection on that shift. So I did that for a year consistently, 5 days a week, most time 4 to 5 days a week. And then I started training up some of my colleagues to facilitate and evaluated it using QI methodology. And then recently published a paper on shift reflection. So it started bottom up. I'm very proud of that. It's something that started here in my organization. I started by a nurse. And yeah, to be first author on a paper for a model that's never been developed for, I'm very proud of that. And I think it's because of that this role came up, which was relatively new at the time. The person who was in the role before me was a psychologist. I'm not a psychologist. But it was open up to people of different professions, and I applied. And I think because of that, connecting with the frontline staff, that shift reflection model, and the findings were quite encouraging. It was a small project pilot, but it was encouraging. And yeah, got this role, and I've been in this role coming up to 4 years now as a deputy lead in the staff support team.
Such a fantastic journey, because I remember hearing about the reflective model that you've done, and it's rolled out across the
sustaining something like this, the high turnover in staff, and it comes and goes, and some places are doing it more than others. I'm proud to say we still offer that training for any team. It's not mandatory, but if there are teams interested and wanting to do it, and we've recently expanded to community teams. So we've done training for community mental health team, for home treatment team, which is crisis team in the community. And in a few weeks' time, I'll be doing more training for our acute referral center. So it's still work in progress, and is high. There are challenges, which I might talk about a bit later, but it's still there, and there's still a lot of interest in sometimes, it's particularly in the current climate.
Now, as we come out of COVID and start returning back to normal, it's really good that staff have the time to reflect and leave stuff at work as well, because we work in really challenging times. The role that you do, what are some of the benefits to staff?
Role, the Deputy Staff Support Lead. It comes under corporate psychology and psychotherapy within my organization. And under that umbrella, we coordinate and facilitate various types of reflective spaces and other things. So a few of those, like shift reflection, I already mentioned what that is. We also do what we call critical incident staff support spaces. So this is a space, a peer support space, where after a critical incident, like really bad incident, for example, suicide, homicide, serious violence and aggression, even staff bereavement, we facilitate a 1.5 space, again, about the emotional impact of those incidents, a space where they could help process what it's left them with, and normalize some of the reactions they may have experienced if they're not sleeping at night or dreaming about things, or things I'm going mad, things like that. But actually, it's a normal reaction after distress or traumatic event. In addition to that, we do what we call Schwartz Round, another whole organization reflective space. So rather from a team, this is a whole organization reflective space, again, about the emotional impact about the experience. And sometimes this is linked to a theme. So for example, we do a theme on feeling alone, the emotional impact of COVID, looking after myself while I'm trying to look after others, the cost of living crisis, and not feel alone. In addition, we do some team leader training. And also recently, I started facilitating this new thing called Emotional Emancipation Circles. And this is facilitated by Black staff, for Black staff, or staff with Black African ancestry. And it's new and it's going well. And this is to, support particularly Black staff, because a lot of our staff support spaces historically has been facilitated by people who don't look like the staff.
Yeah.
So we have almost 50% of our staff are from Black or minority ethnic background. So people want staff facilitating spaces to kind of look like that. That's just a few things. The other things, we do the well-being month and stuff, and there's stuff that pops up now and again that we do. But that's what we do in our role as a staff support team. Do a lot of signposting to counselling or IAPs if needed, but we don't do that work ourselves. Not
the work that you do would be done by another profession, and to show that as nurses we can make that transition using the skills we have, because I guess when we work with people, we work with them from a psychologically informed place, and we use ourselves, but also because we've been there. I think it's for me, I appreciate, because I'm on the Emotional Emancipation Circle. It's such a really good space to be in. It's phenomenal.
Thank you. I mean, of course, I had to do additional training. But like you said, I think with those lived experience, working on the front line, knowing, feeling, experiencing what my fellow colleagues have experienced, putting a better place to connect and relate. And I think that is important in a role like what I'm doing at the moment. In addition, again, it's ongoing. I continue to try and develop my knowledge and skill that's relevant for my role. So, for example, I've done the critical incident debriefing training. I've done some acceptance and commitment therapy training for the workplace. I've done coaching conversations. I've done restorative justice courses. I created a shift reflection model, so I'm teaching shift reflection and delivering training for critical incident debriefing as well. So from being a participant, being trained, now I'm delivering training, some of those things. I've done quality improvement training. And it's ongoing. And obviously, most recently, I've done the training to be a emotional emancipation circle facilitator. So yeah, I'm just
It
adding
just
stuff to
yeah.
enhance my skills, my knowledge, and so I could deliver what's needed and what's by staff within the organization.
And that's an important point to make around the additional training that you've done, because in nursing we always say it's lifelong learning, isn't it?
Mm.
But also having all these string to your bows helps you in terms of imparting that knowledge onto other colleagues.
Yeah, I think what has helped me as well, I've worked across the organization
Hmm.
in the different
Yeah,
sites and setting, and for a while, and I would like to think I've got a good reputation and respected. So the service I provide is a trust-wide service.
yeah,
We cover the entire trust. We employ over 5,000 staff, and our services are available to everyone if needed, and they can reach out. Although we are a very small team of
yeah.
four, um, but yeah.
And I guess that goes into my next question about some of the challenges you might face in a role like this, because as you pointed out already, you're a small team, you cover trust-wide, there's 5,000 staff, of which half of, what are some of the challenges?
Okay, how much time have you got? It's quite challenging because there's still some people,
Mhm.
some senior people, kind of question some of the stuff we do. Not question, but it's not a priority.
Yeah,
The challenges in the NHS and most NHS trusts at the moment is the increased demand for beds, the increase in the need for mental health services, um, and I can understand to a certain extent why that will be the priority. However, staff well-being should be a priority because if I'm not in a good place, um, if my cup is empty, how can I deliver quality service? Um, and the evidence shows you got well-managed team, looked after team, staff well-being, the outcome will be positive patient experiences, better recovery, etc., etc. There's lots of evidence to show that. Challenges are we're a small team, and the
hmm
demand, especially in the last few years, we had COVID. People
hmm
are feeling isolated, feeling alone. People are being asked to do more, but not being provided with additional services. So people, the data, the surveys and stuff, there's within every NHS staff, trust staff are becoming increasingly stressed and anxious, and more people are reaching out to us. So it's hard to sometimes respond to some of these requests in a timely way because
hmm
we have so many people coming in. And the more people hear about our services, I think they talk to each other and they become more aware. Um, so that can be quite challenging, in addition to if you have people who are still kind of every now and again, what's this? Not everybody is psychologically minded.
yeah,
Not everybody is on board. Um, and yeah, there's a few barriers. So it's funding issues. Those are the main two. I could go on and list many, but
yeah,
those I think are the main two. We basically need to match the demand for our services, for the demand that's coming into our services, and then just make our team a bit bigger.
yeah. That's always going to be the challenge, because as you mentioned, we seem to get the focus right. We need to make sure we look after staff who are there to look after people.
Been there, you've been there.
Yeah.
We've lived that experience. We know what we've been through or go through, and we know what our colleagues have been through. And it has been a bit frustrating at time because the stuff I've
hmm
been saying from like day one, years ago,
Yeah.
being proactive, staff well-being, and it just feel like the investment or interest over the years hasn't been there. So it's a bit frustrating that we've got to this point. There was a missed opportunity to make it a priority or part of a trust strategy, and not just make it a strategy, but you know, put things in place, tangible things, behave, don't just say, yeah, look after
Yeah.
yourself, but those sort of things. So it did have its frustrations, but say what it has happened, it is what it is, and now we can move forward and do what we can.
Terms of advice that you'd give to people who want to progress or move to roles like yours? And I appreciate that yours is quite a unique role, but any tips? Because as you mentioned, you did many different roles in the early intervention team. You also went on to, you actually got approached. So it's not like you went looking. There was something about you as a person, you as a skilled clinician that made people reach out to you. So any tips or advice for colleagues listening in?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a role like this, like I said, one, I never wanted to be a nurse, never planned to be a nurse. I'm a nurse,
Yeah,
and almost 20 years later, I'm still a nurse, although in a different role.
yeah,
Wasn't I didn't think I'd be you know, working in corporate psychology and psychotherapy in this role. My advice would be to, if you have a special interest in this particular kind of work as a
mhm,
nurse, I think wherever you are at the moment, you can start small. Just think about well-being, or what something little you can do for your team. Um, and if there's a way you can, you could get a baseline, do a little mini project and get a baseline and then evaluate it in a few months' time. Um, you could start like that and build on that, because that's how I started. I didn't do shift reflection to get this job. It just so
yeah,
happened that it opened a door for me and it came up. It was so you never know. You never know where some of these things can lead. Um, and everybody has their preference, a cup of tea. Some people might want to go managerial,
yeah,
clinical, staff support. Um, but yeah, I think if you are passionate about something like this, you believe in it, think creatively, discuss with your manager. Believe in about something. Yeah, talk to your leaders, your managers. Try to kind of think about why you want to do this and the difference it potentially can make, the potential difference it can make. And if there are people within your team who, you know, have a special interest in something like this as well, get them on board with you. Sometime the more of you are on board, the better the chances of it being introduced or embedded. And hopefully those kind of little project, those work will speak for itself. You don't have to go around shouting about it. People might hear word of mouth, and then, which, like what happened with me. Who's that guy? What's he doing? What's this shift reflection thing?
yeah,
And as I said, it could open doors. So yeah, think creatively. It's hard to get additional funding for stuff. If you can, great.
yeah,
But if what's within your control, what resources have you got? Even if it's just each other or yourself. Um, yeah, try something, and you could always review to try something different. But check out what's going around in other services within your
mhm,
areas. There might be stuff you can join in, or people are doing that you could introduce. And if there are little courses as well that some trusts offer in-house training on, for example, critical incident debriefing or the reflective practice spaces, if you could get onto one of those, again, that would be helpful, and that
mhm,
will build up your CV and hopefully put you in a better position to get into a role like this. Quite a few of my colleagues now, nursing colleagues, are actually working in staff support role across other trusts.
yeah.
Some of them used to be my peers who I worked and did some of the training that I delivered with them. And now they're in other trusts doing a similar role. And I'm very pleased, I'm very proud of that.
That's amazing. Like, yeah, to hear. And you're right, starting small, because we all have things within our gift that we can, your awards in your community teams within your gift. Then people will hear about it, or you can use that as examples in interviews. Any discrimination when you applied for promotion.
I was pleasantly surprised. Like I said, the person before me was a psychologist. It was open
Yeah,
up the thing to nurses. But again, I think the work that I did spoke for itself and it put me
yeah.
in a good position. People want to like get him here. So I don't feel experience discrimination there.
Mhm.
If there's anything, maybe the opposite. They want somebody like me.
Positive practice. Is it positive action?
Yeah, you know. So coming into this role didn't feel tokenistic.
Yeah,
Uh, but I have to say, while being in the role as a nurse, working in a predominantly, I was the first nurse working in this team. Um, Again, which is like, oh, it's quite an achievement, but
Yeah.
that comes with challenges. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychotherapist. So there are things while in the role that I felt that I didn't feel included in, or not valued, or discriminated. I don't want to use the word racism, but I
Yeah.
just felt at times I haven't been fairly treated compared to people in similar roles. I do feel from what I do, deserve to be, I'm not begging, I deserve to be at a higher band. When I talk to people what I do and who I do it for
Mhm.
and different things I do and say what band I am, it's like what they are more angry and than I am. So for me, sometimes, yeah, I felt like I should have been upgraded a long
Yeah.
time ago. I've took on so much more since I started this role. But at the moment, we're working on a business case, and I'm hoping in the very near future that that situation changes, and then I'm in the I get to be at a higher band.
Yeah. And that goes into my other question that I ask is what banding it is, because I know people are interested in progressing, and part of that might mean moving up the ladder or doing different roles that are not bedside roles. What band is this currently, Rawle?
So currently, I'm in a band 7 role. Um,
I
yeah,
know. Yeah.
I'm in a band 7 role. But the service I provide, the people I train, senior band 8s, band 9s, it's quite a big responsibility. I don't think if it's somebody from a different profession, psychologist, psychotherapist, be band 7. So I don't know if it's a nurse thing or if
Mm.
it's maybe it's I don't know, but it is a band 7 rule. But I personally feel it's more than that, much more than that. Not just me,
No,
but
no,
people are
yeah.
surprised when I say I'm a band 7. They kind
Yeah.
of like more
I think I'm
shocked.
one of those people as well.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
not
I think
surprising.
I know I'm one of those people.
Well, sometimes I get a little bit embarrassed about it sometimes, but sometimes when I talk about it too much, I get a bit worked up
Yeah.
and annoyed about it. But like I said, hopefully that's the situation now, and I'm hoping in the near future that that would change. And if it doesn't, then I need to think about where I go next.
Thank you so much. This has been like really enlightening, and I love hearing your story and the things that you've done. And I think I know it would inspire other people because it's like you essentially made your own role, essentially, you know, by doing
Yeah.
what you've done. So that's really good. I always ask people, are you on social media that you want people to connect? Because obviously you're doing training and you've trained peers around and people in other trusts that might be interested in adopting, especially the reflective practice work that you've done. Plus, also, I could put the link to your paper in the description.
Yeah, no, sure. I'm on Twitter, Ragoobar on Twitter. So people could contact me that way, easiest way, and depends on what sort of conversation. Then we could find other ways of communicating as well. In regards to the paper, happy for that to be shared, or link, or if
Yeah.
anyone wants to have a chat about it, happy to be shared. Anyway, any way I can help,